Hey guys, Sean here at the Gardener Center. So this week I have plants on the table again. Actually, two completely unrelated plants, totally different from each other. One over here is a early spring, cool weather loving annual. And these guys over here on my left and in front of me are a super easy to grow, really long-lived perennial. Gonna give you the scoop on both of them, so stay tuned. Okay guys, so I'm gonna start over here with this eye candy, because if not, you're just gonna be staring at them the whole time anyways while I'm talking about these guys. So we're gonna start over here. So like I said in the intro, these are a early spring, cool weather loving annual, and these are called Ranunculus. More specifically, Ranunculus asiaticus. Their common name is the Persian buttercup. To be honest with you though, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never heard a single person call them a Persian buttercup. That's their common name, and they are part of a large family of plants called the buttercups. So they are actually distant cousins of the buttercup that grows in your lawn and in your landscape that, you know, that we all know from when we were kids. So Persian buttercup, Ranunculus asiaticus, and these guys in this part of the world where we garden are treated as an annual. They're technically a perennial. They grow like a tuber, so think like dahlias. But because of the specific climate in the part of the world they come from, it's really tough to replicate here. So these guys originate in the very eastern part of the Mediterranean. So think like Israel, Jordan, Syria, and into like Iran and Iraq. That's why they call them Persian buttercups. We used to call Iran Persia. So that's the area of the world they come from and originate in. And although they're hardy, you know, they're perennials, and they're hardy, you know, in zones 8 to 10, and we're zone 7. You wouldn't even be able to grow these down south. You know, you go down to like South Carolina and Georgia, that's a zone 8 there. But these guys would not work there. I don't know if any of you have ever spent time in South Carolina in July. I have. It's anything but hot and dry there in the summertime. It's plenty hot, but there's no dryness involved. And they run into the same problem here. So these guys like to go summer dormant, and they like to dry out, and they have a really kind of a specific routine you have to follow to make them rebloom and keep them for next year. So we treat these as annuals. Trust me, you don't even want to try to keep them from year to year. So we sell them as annuals in early spring. So they love the weather we're having right now. They love cool temperatures, and very much like the pansies that we talked about a while back, they love the cool temperatures, not the heat. Once the heat comes, that triggers them to go summer dormant. A lot of people think they die when it gets hot, but they don't. They just decline and go dormant. So these guys like the weather we're having right now. And depending on how fast it warms up, they're usually effective for like 5 to 6 weeks. You know, I like to think of them as like a longer lasting vase of flowers or a bouquet of flowers. You know, they're gonna last not for months and months and months, but you'll get a month and a half, maybe 2 out of them, depending on how quickly it warms up. So no tolerance to heat, love the cool temperatures. What they don't share with the pansies is that ability to withstand frost and freezing temperatures. So these guys, I would tell you like 38 degrees is a cutoff point for the Ranunculus. You could push that a little bit by hardening them off. And you know, that's a phrase you're gonna hear me say a lot over the next month or two. And what that is, you know, when somebody's talking about hardening off a plant, that is gradually exposing them to lower temperatures. So, and we'll use these guys as a perfect example. So these guys were grown in a greenhouse. They were probably never exposed to temperatures below 50. So even when I'm making decisions out here in the nursery, you know, we've talked about our greenhouse before. There's a roof but no walls, so outside temperature is the temperature in the greenhouse. So even when I'm making a decision to bring plants in, you know, even though these guys are okay down to 38, 36 degrees, I don't want that to happen the night I get them. So in a perfect world for me, if I can get my ranunculus in on a Tuesday, and it's going to be like 44 degrees that night, and then maybe the next night it's going to be 42, and then the next 2 nights are 40, and then we go down to 38 2 days after that, that's fine. It's all about gradually exposing plants to lower temperatures. Applies to them right now. It's going to apply to a lot more plants we're going to be talking about later on. But these guys, so no heat, don't let them freeze. A couple other things, you know, they're a bit high maintenance as far as plants go. I'll give you that, but I mean, look at them. They're beautiful. They're worth it. They also don't like to be out in heavy rain for prolonged periods of time. They rot easily if they're overwatered. Remember where they come from, very dry parts of the Eastern Mediterranean there. But also the flowers are kind of delicate, and if we get a heavy rain for a long period of time, the flowers will fill up with water, and the petals will rot and they'll fall apart. These guys, once the flowers pass, you just snip them down at the base there. So they require some deadheading, but like I said, they're going to be effective for 5 or 6 weeks for you. Persian buttercup, Ranunculus asiatica, often mistaken for the guys over here I'm going to talk about next, so stick around. All right, guys, so my next group of plants over here in my plant spotlight for this week, and this is a plant probably everyone knows or at least has heard of, are peonies. A lot of people think these are peonies. They look very similar to peonies, but you know, obviously these are annuals. Peonies are very much perennials, and peonies, I think, are probably one of the easiest perennials to grow. You don't need any green thumbs at all to grow these guys. And you know, I mentioned that they're very long-lived. So when I say that, I'm talking about 80, 90, 100 years, peonies. There's peonies in botanical gardens around the world that have been cultivated in these gardens for well over 100 years. So these guys, once you get them in your garden and they're established, you know, they're not going anywhere. Something I really like to use these guys for, you know, a lot of times people will call and they're looking for a plant to commemorate an occasion. Maybe it was a birth of a child, or maybe it's for a memorial for a lost loved one or a pet, and they want to plant something for that occasion. And people usually think trees are shrubs, but you know, a lot of times, you know, a tree or a shrub might struggle a bit to get established, and some of them don't even live very long, you know, as far as shrubs go. And there's nothing worse than losing a plant that you're planting as a memorial for someone or to mark an occasion. So peonies are great for that. And the beautiful part about peonies is if you let's say you plant a peony bush to commemorate the birth of your first child, and 20 years from that, then you move out of your house, you can take the peony with you. You can't bring the tree you planted with you, but these guys can go with you where you go next. So that's a nice thing. I just want to throw that in there at the beginning because they're really great for that. I have 2 different groups of peonies here. The guys right in front of me here are garden peonies or herbaceous peonies. My great-grandmother used to call these Memorial Day roses, and that's right about the time they bloom, right at the end of May, beginning of June. These guys are probably the ones you're most familiar with. They get the big flowers, you know, kind of like the ranunculus here, usually in white or pink or shades of pink and red. And, you know, again, super long lived. These guys are just starting to sprout right now. If you have peonies in your yard, they probably look about this right now. Something that's important to know about these, especially at this stage in the game, is these herbaceous peonies, and that means, herbaceous means they die back. So in the fall, once we get a couple of freezes, they die back completely to the ground and disappear. Over here, these guys I'm going to talk about next. These are Ito peonies. Ito peonies, Ito peonies. It's kind of like the tomato thing. You can say it however you want. It's cool. These guys are a cross between these herbaceous peonies and tree peonies, which I don't have here. But tree peonies are really different in that they grow almost like a shrub, or like, think rose bush, where it grows stems and then the leaves fall off in the fall, but the stems remain. That's a tree peony. So these Ito or Ito peonies are a hybrid cross between these and the tree peonies. These guys still die back in the fall to the ground, But what you get from these guys is that stem strength from the tree peonies, so they don't get floppy on you. Another really, really cool thing that you get from the Ito peonies that you don't get over here in the herbaceous peonies is the color yellow. Yellow is a really kind of rare color in the peony world, and if you have gardening friends that come over and you kind of want to impress them, and who doesn't want to impress their gardening friends, have some yellow peonies in your garden. That always works. But these herbaceous peonies, if you have them already, you probably know this, or if you're going to plant them, you should know this. They have a tendency to flop. They have really big flowers. Like I talked about earlier, the ranunculus flowers get filled with water. Same thing happens with the peonies. And what ends up happening is they do this, and they flop all over the place. So what you really want to use are these things. I mean, they actually call these peony rings or peony supports, and that's for a reason, because these guys flop. A mistake people make with these is they try to use them after the peony has already flopped over. And that doesn't work, because then you got to get somebody else involved, and you got to stuff them in through the ring, and then you have the 3 pounds of bologna in a 1 pound bag look going. And it's just really, the right thing to do is put them in right now and let them grow naturally through it. I promise you, you won't even know that the ring is there after they've gone through that. So herbaceous peonies, if you don't have rings or plant supports or peony cages for them, get them. And if you do have them, put them on now. Don't wait till later, because that stuffing them in there just doesn't look natural. The Ito peonies do not need any kind of support like that. These guys have big, huge flowers, color yellow. You got the whites, you got the reds. There's even some kind of cool orangey apricot shades in these guys. So very nice. And they read a little differently from these guys too after flowering. They flower same time, end of May, beginning of June. These guys, after they flower, they're kind of nondescript, and they just kind of blend in with the background. The Itos over here, these have more of a presence, again, because of that cross with the tree peony. They have big, bold foliage. You can see the red color. That sticks with the foliage for most of the summer on a lot of the different varieties. So these guys are just, think of it as more of a shrub than a perennial. It's got just a really shrubby presence. You're going to do about 30 inches high on the herbaceous peonies, about 30 to 36 inches high on the Ito peonies. About the same spread on both of them. These guys might get a little bit bigger, but that 3 foot range, nothing crazy. And that's even if they live to be 100 years old. That's really where they're going to kind of max out. They're not just going to keep going on indefinitely. They're going to kind of make that 3 foot clump and stop. So 2 different groups of plants here, both awesome for different reasons, similar looking flowers. So I hope you give at least one a try, or if not, at least you learned a little something about something you already have. As always, guys, underneath the link for the video you're watching, there's a little contact Sean button. Please feel free to click on that if you have any questions about what I talked about today, or actually any gardening related question. Just shoot me a line, call the store, stop on by anytime. And guys, remember, before you get out and plant, if you're planting, your spouse plants with you. If you're weeding, you weed alone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.